Hello and welcome to the POCACITO webinar. I hope you're all having a great day. My name is Max Grunig. I'm the president of Ecologic Institute in Washington, D.C. We're here today in the context of the Post-Carbon Cities of Tomorrow project, brief POCACITO, where we have a number of cities in the US visited this year with experts on urban sustainability from Europe participating in live workshops and conferences in all of our 6 US cities. And we want to continue this interaction now with all of you in webinars. And of course, you also notice we have a LinkedIn group where we can exchange opinions and start conversations and share information while we're not meeting in person. So hello and welcome today. We have people participating from all, from most of our cities in the network. And I'm very excited today to present to you today the GreenMoneySearch startup here with the presenters Natalie Goodman and David Matiella from the GreenMoneySearch, and also the special guests here today, Jonathan Blackburn, who's an expert for PACE in Texas, and then we have Gavin Dillingham, an expert for HARC, also in Texas. They're all going to present, and you can all also ask questions. You'll see there is both a function in the webinar box in the control field for questions, and there's a chat field. This webinar is going to be recorded, so you can actually watch it again afterwards. You can also get in touch with us with questions afterwards, and you'll be all muted right now, but you can ask the questions in the text boxes, and we can also unmute you for conversation after the presentation with a Q&A. So welcome again, and I think we're about to start with the presentation now. If you have any technical issues throughout the webinar, please, you can also reach me, of course, via email anytime if there is an interruption in the webinar or any other issues. Now I want to hand over and give the floor to Natalie and David, who will start the presentation here today. And yeah, welcome to the POCACITO webinar.
Thank you, Max, and thank you to POCACITO for hosting us, and to everyone who is joining us and listening in today. It's 11 a.m. in Texas where we're sitting, and I'd like to take a moment just to briefly introduce everyone from the bottom up. Jonathan Blackburn, Managing Director with Texas PACE Authority, Gavin Dillingham, Program Director for Clean Energy Policy for Houston Advanced Research Center. I'm David Matiella, co-founder of GreenMoneySearch, and Natalie Goodman, co-founder of GreenMoneySearch. GreenMoneySearch began in July of 2016 around a simple idea. We connect citizens to public and private incentives in order to promote more sustainable practices. We're a team of 5 based out of Houston, Texas, and despite being a brand new startup, we already have 3 public agencies engaged in conversations about how we can help them achieve smart city goals and sustainable growth while also growing local economies using a simple but innovative idea. We believe that sustainability is a necessary feature that must be accessible to all. And this is what drives our core mission: equal accessibility for citizens regarding funding opportunities for sustainable practices in our built environment. We see ourselves as helping to drive the implementation of those sustainable practices. We see ourselves overlapping with several priorities of post-carbon cities of tomorrow in several ways. While POCACITO sees the need to improve energy efficiency by capitalizing on low-carbon housing upgrades and energy-efficient retrofits for existing buildings, GreenMoneySearch wants to accelerate those goals by streamlining a citizen's access to the very incentives that makes these retrofits affordable and attainable. POCACITO sees net zero buildings that reduce energy, reduce water and waste consumption as a key opportunity for post-carbon tomorrow. GreenMoneySearch sees the need to connect citizens to the incentives that make those investments cash flow positive sooner. POCACITO sees challenges in the disconnect between local governments from larger agendas, the segregation of and siloing between intergovernmental processes at federal, state, county, and city levels. GreenMoneySearch seeks to connect and align these agendas. And lastly, POCACITO sees a near limitless and sustainable low-carbon future, and GreenMoneySearch also sees low carbon as both a need and an inevitability. And we see sustainability as a merit good, which should be available to all. I'd like to take a moment to share some data from a UN-supported study called The Climate Has Changed, Why Bold Low-Carbon Action Makes Good Business Sense. In order to understand both the opportunities to achieve low-carbon future in the United States, we need to outline several differences between the United States and Europe. Here we're seeing annual carbon savings delivered in each region. Europe is far outpacing the United States. The reasons are complex, but there are key indicators worth mentioning that provide opportunities in terms of return on investment. This slide here goes into a little more detail about where each region is achieving savings. Again, the middle figure in that chart represents the annual carbon savings in each region, and the colored sections on the charts pertains to the actions described in the legend, those actions which have been used to achieve the most carbon savings in terms of carbon emissions. The percent IRR in the charts indicates the internal rate of return for each action. In other words, the highest rate in terms of return on investment. So, for instance, the majority action in Europe is low carbon energy installation, represented by the blue. This represents the majority of carbon actions in that region, with a 6% internal rate of return. We look at the same action in the United States. It's only a small piece of that puzzle, yet it yields twice the internal rate of return in the United States. So one example of that is rooftop solar, which has been growing and is projected to grow in the United States. And with it, further incentivization, that piece of the puzzle could grow even further. Also in the United States, particular actions such as energy-efficient industrial processes and energy-efficient buildings also make up a part of that puzzle. And the return on investment is high compared to those internal rates of return in Europe. So in the United States, especially in the United States, it's critical to find a balance between the carrot and stick approach. The carrot that encourages and incentivizes investment and the regulation that is necessary to meet those. What is required is a close collaboration between a positively engaged business community and pragmatic policymakers. So in order to continue to make progress in terms of carbon emissions reductions, smart policy measures need to be employed to make low carbon investments more financially attractive, and added incentives are a way to meet that. This next slide here points out a curious observation. Behavioral change represents an enormous internal rate of return, 109%, by far the highest of either diagram, and yet it's only a small sliver of actions. This presents several implications in terms of behavioral economics. Number one, it signals a potential for growth in terms of the profitability of certain acts of energy savings. It also indicates an opportunity to expand those actions at scale by engaging the citizenry of North America. In some ways, this may be the lowest hanging fruit of all. And in some ways, this is what we need to encourage. This is a new market trend. And when something becomes a market trend, that is a key to the fact that it taps into some deeper desire in society to connect to something deeper, to make the world a more livable and a better place, to change perceptions that sustainability is out of our reach or is something that we cannot afford. Yet, in fact, we can afford it, and the numbers demand it. How can we apply vast market forces of the masses and further incentivize our movement toward a post-carbon future? We can target people, and we can target people where they live, in cities. Cities are where our populations live. They're where our leadership is most effective. They're where our economic growth is. It's where the rubber of innovation and potential meets the road of economic growth. Our future lies most directly with cities and the populations that they serve. And it is here where we target our efforts. And this is where GreenMoneySearch can serve most effectively with a tool, a unique tool, that is equally accessible to all citizens, because citizens have a responsibility to meet the needs of their citizens. How do we know what cities want? They're telling us. From the C40 to National League of Cities 2016 report, they're telling us that economic development, they're telling us the energy efficiency, they're telling us the budgets, they're telling us what their concerns are. GreenMoneySearch has a way to help them meet their priorities. What is the problem here? The problem exists in that there's a gap. There's a gap of understanding. There's a gap in connecting the incentives that governments provide to citizens who remain unaware due to budgets or personnel limitations or infrastructure. Cities have a problem realizing high utilization rates of certain incentive programs. If those incentive programs are not fully utilized, sustainable goals go unachieved, therefore leaving out sustainable and smart city growth. The application process could be confusing and cumbersome and archaic. Citizens want to lower their cost of doing business, and they want to lower their cost of living. Cities want to help them do that, but they need help. GreenMoneySearch can help that.
Thanks, David. So this is Natalie speaking. In the next few slides, I'm going to build up to a singular document that defines government, citizen, the gap that David was talking about, and how we fill that gap. So let's have a look. Oh, it's not progressing for some reason. There we go. So you can see at the top of your screen, ideally, the flow of incentives should go from government directly to citizen. However, there exists that gap that disrupts that flow. In our conversations with governments or public agencies so far, we've learned that incentives are created really for three main reasons, and that's to lower the cost of living and doing business, and overall to promote economic growth and social responsibility. And this is accomplished through these four broad mechanisms. So you can see there grants and tax programs, rebates, financing, and other. Through our engagement with citizens, we learned that they want incentives really for four main reasons. So they have a new construction project or an existing building retrofit project. Perhaps they're trying to meet new codes or regulations. We know that Texas recently put out their new energy codes, but the most pressing reason was due to aging buildings. So we learned citizens are largely looking to reduce monthly bills or pricey overhead costs. And we learned all of this through, it's our survey that's housed on our website, but also as we were building our case studies, we learned a lot of this. And David's going to go through some of those case studies a little later in the presentation. But you can see also how we categorize citizens into these two broad groups. So we have residential and commercial. For developer, we want to note it's mostly small to mid-sized developers that we've been getting responses from. For tenants, specifically those whose lease agreements allow for a major retrofit. And to better define professional or technical service providers, those are your architect, engineer, GC, and etc. So for the financial institutions, this was an interesting call we took. I think it was the second month that we launched our website that we received this call. It was from a financial solutions group. They represented credit unions nationwide. And so they had reached out to us looking to provide a solution to those credit unions, this sort of corporate responsibility checkbox, if you will, where they could offer perhaps a lower rate or a better rate to citizens who had green construction projects versus traditional. So you can see how we fill that gap and maintain the flow of incentives really through two tools, and that's our database and application portal. And I'm going to dive into those deeper here in a bit. But we couple those two tools with directly marketing to citizens to tell them about incentives that we're promoting either on behalf of a public agency or government or those who have an incentive program they want us to promote. We also couple those tools with our four-step process, which is search, verify, apply, and locate. And really, we're going to best serve cities by complementing their smart city goals or sustainability goals or resiliency goals. And we're going to best work with cities whose focus is to collaborate with other levels of government. And that's really to further leverage incentives and nudge their citizens to make a right decision. And we define that as implementing more sustainable practices. So our online service solution You can see here our database and application portal. It's housed on our website, and that's shown at the bottom of your screen. Our database houses public funding from all levels of government that we've engaged with so far. And you can see we're now engaging private funds as well. Our application portal houses the citizen dashboard as well as our 4-step process. So let me walk you through how that works. All right, here you're looking at the citizen dashboard. So for this presentation, we've created a hypothetical project, and so I'm the citizen or applicant. We did this so that everything really populates and you can see how this works. So you can see me, that's my profile. I'm in the top right-hand corner, and since I'm the citizen, let me show you how I've arrived at this dashboard. So first, I'm going to visit our website, and I put up a snippet of our website on your screen. And then I'm going to click the Get Started button since I have a project, and I've highlighted that in yellow. Once I've done that, the website's going to navigate me to 2 additional selections. You should see those 2 on your screen. One says, I want more green, and that's a campaign we're running, so we'll talk about that a little bit later, but since I have a project, I'm going to click that. So I've highlighted that. That's going to take me to a survey which we have on our website, and that's going to be all about my project. Now, in exchange for my response to this 12-question survey, I'm going to then receive a list of incentives available by my project's zip code. So I want to complete this survey and then click Submit to hand over my responses. When I do that via email, and I won't show all that now, but via email, you're going to get a little link, and it's going to say, go and create a profile in the Citizen Dashboard. And when I do that, everything's going to be blank. But that's only until I progress through the other facilitated steps, which are verify, apply, and locate. But right now, I'm in search, so I'm searching for incentives using my project zip code. All right, so fast forward, I've created my profile and followed that link. And to be honest, if you've ever created an online profile, then you're pretty much an expert in using our very basic citizen dashboard. And after I've finished that, I'm going to receive that list of incentives again by my project zip code. But notice I'm not directly engaging as a citizen with that database. So we thought about this, and we did this purposefully, and that was to best facilitate the most effective search experience for the citizen. But under that search tab, that's where I'm going to find the incentives for my project. I want to note that this list does not include incentives that I'm eligible for. It doesn't necessarily list those that I'm eligible for, nor will it be tailored to my project. So let's say my project is mostly commercially focused. That list of incentives could have both commercial and residential. So this step search is free of charge. There is no obligation for me as a citizen to move forward. So I can stop right there after building my profile and receiving that list. It's the other facilitated steps which have a fee associated with them. And we did this so that we could collect survey responses in one area and share those through our data exchange program with governments that we're engaged with. And this provides a fantastic pulse on citizen interest and citizen need versus those incentive programs that governments believe they need to promote. So overall, it's a great gauge as well as an opportunity for process improvement where governments can really provide citizens with the incentives they most want and need. All right, so for today's example, again, I'm the citizen, I have the project, and we're going to assume I'm moving forward with the facilitated steps. So I've grayed out search, and the facilitated steps are those in the shades of green on your screen. So I've agreed to the fee and terms and conditions and all that good stuff, and now I'm ready to begin determining eligibility, applying, and finally locating professionals in my area to help me with my project. So these steps, they're self-paced. However, a task list is generated, and that's going to help keep me as a citizen on track with any approaching deadlines or action items that are needed on my end. So let's look at verify. Here in this step, I get help determining eligibility using the information from both that survey that I just completed and responded to, as well as maybe additional questions that are sent to me via the dashboard. So should additional information be needed, that's how I'll receive it. And here will be under that tab, I'm going to get that list of eligible incentives for my project. And then I can choose which ones as a citizen that I want to apply to. I want to note the data exchange in this step is with the government or whoever has asked us to promote their incentive program. It's to help them understand, okay, how many citizens are looking for incentives first? What type of incentives are they looking for? And are citizens having success in obtaining eligibility? So overall, it's a view of project types going up in a certain geography, as well as incentive program relevancy to those projects. So I finished with verify. Let's look at apply. Here I use dynamic input information digitally, and I'm applying online for those incentives that I've chosen to move forward with. My applications, application submission, receipt of submission, processing of application, additional information, all that good stuff, it's all going to be tracked and displayed under this tab. So let's note the data exchange here in this step. It's focused on improvements needed to applications. And this is because we know things change, but not all of those changes are always reflected immediately in these applications. So providing a quick capability to identify outdated information really allows those who are managing the applications to make those corrections needed, and most importantly, keep things moving forward for the applying citizen. All right, so I finished with apply. Let's move over to locate. I'm going to get help locating, preferably, local professionals that can help me build out my project. One huge assumption that we noted was that once citizens received approval for funding or the funding itself, that they had the slightest clue of what to do next. And that was not true. But by connecting citizens or adding this fourth step and connecting them with professionals for their projects, we do two things here. We ensure adherence to any parameters that are spelt out in applications, and we ensure that incentives then become these sustainable practices implemented in our built environment. So the data exchange here is not only local and qualified professionals in a certain geography, but it's also the projects by type and the incentives that they're utilizing. So you heard me talk about data exchange a lot in the previous slide, and I want to quickly touch on that. I've highlighted an icon on this, my citizen dashboard, right? So I had IT add this because actually as a citizen, this is not going to appear in my dashboard. It's just for today only. So this button actually appears on the government's portal. So this is their view of the application portal, and let's have a look at what they'll see. So either at a singular level or an overall reporting of the incentive programs we're facilitating, they can see survey responses, add detail or collectively, other project details, maybe incentive program relevancy, application process improvements needed, and then the overall utilization rates of incentives. So we're giving back information to governments or those who are managing their incentive program, and it's all really to create an effective and efficient process improvement. So here I've highlighted the task list button on the left hand of your side of your screen and the immediate task list, and that's part of the Citizen Dashboard's overview. So this overview provides a quick snapshot of any upcoming deadlines, and I can see that immediately when I'm in this view. But if I was to click that task list tab, all of the steps, they're going to have more detailed provided. And the task list is actually, it's populated for both citizen and for government. Again, the goal, keep things moving forward as efficiently as possible. All right, so I've highlighted the application expert button on your screen. This is where citizens who need help, they have a question or they want to open a dialogue with us, they're going to click that button, and we're here to facilitate, be a facilitator of these applications on behalf of the government or whomever is managing a certain incentive. And we're available virtually for citizens who are applying to those incentive programs. That's done through an online chat or dialogue box. And we're going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. However, should we find ourselves at a sticking point, that's fine. We will have worked out in advance specific points of contact with those who manage that incentive to get the answers needed and keep things moving forward for the citizen. All right, so we looked at task list overview on the dashboard, and here is the application overview. So you can see how multiple applications can be not only applied to, but they can be tracked. So I just took a quick snapshot of everything here, so it's in one view, and zoomed in on that. I've also entered 3 hypothetical applications for today's exercise. So you can see percentage complete or the progress shown, and then the status is shown there. And status can also state in progress, submitted, under review, processing, or approved. So lastly, let's look at project funding on our dashboard overview. And for that, actually, let's use this opportunity to look at our 3 case studies and how they would look in project funding. So for that, I'm going to hand it over to David, who did these.
All right. So what we're looking at here is a case study of a commercial multifamily building. What we're doing is we're building on the a private market-based private lending solution here called Property Assessed Clean Energy. PACE is building steam and momentum in Texas and all across the United States. So for this project here, this multifamily project, they wanted to pursue a cool roof and solar panels. They had a sizable PACE loan with sizable energy savings in return. What they may have missed out on, however, was an additional rebate and photovoltaic incentive from a local utility. They may have also missed out on other types and expanding the scope of their project to apply reflective roof coating to common areas of that project. So using our database and application portal, we're able to find them additional funding for their project, about a 17% increase of the overall budget. In this case study here, it's a commercial congregation space. They qualify for different kinds of incentives, but either way, they were looking at replacing their chiller and a new HVAC system. Again, a sizable PACE loan, but they may have not considered added scope to their project by adding in high-efficiency lighting. They qualify for up to another $300,000 of incentives and rebates from local utilities. If they add scope again, condensate capture, again, another $100,000. So using our database and application portal, not only can we find them more money, we can add scope to their project, allow them to take a more holistic approach to their major retrofit, and potentially make them cash flow positive that much sooner. Different case study here, commercial retail space, almost 700,000 square feet, $2.5 million PACE loan. Again, using our database and application portal, we can potentially find them added in incentives from local utility-based rebates to the tune of even $239,000 more dollars, getting them to consider adding scope, taking a more holistic look and approach their major retrofit using this market-based private lending solution. GreenMoneySearch uses PACE then as that foundation, and we build upon that foundation to expand the scope of their retrofit, to expand their scope in terms of carbon savings, and to expand their scope in terms of financial reward, potentially making them cash flow positive that much sooner. PACE has often been described as a triple win. We are potentially adding a 4th win onto that project.
Thanks, David. So I've zoomed us out here, and so we're back in the citizen dashboard overview, and my profile there up in the top right-hand corner. So I'm going to bring us full circle and talk to our city engagement team quickly and our city engagement steps. So we started with a focus on serving at the more local level, or in other words, starting with cities. So let's take a look at our proposed approach. So our city engagement team is really comprised of 5 groups. The only one you're not seeing is operations, but obviously it's part of the team. You can see we have a single point of contact there. So their responsibility is quite critical to manage the other groups that are below to achieve the goals and objectives and meet those KPIs. And we provided just a brief description of each of these groups. For those that are generically named, we're just waiting for the ink to dry before we can show you those partners. But right now, I just want to quickly open up the floor to Gavin Dillingham so that he can provide a brief statement of HARC, or Houston Advanced Research Center, and their capability and critical role in our city engagement team. Gavin?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. Yeah, this is a great opportunity that HARC is very happy to be working on and participating in. HARC is a research institute out of the Woodlands, Texas, and we do a lot of sustainability efforts in energy, air, and water. And some of the work that I do is with engaging cities, especially cities across the state of Texas, but also nationally, on helping them with sustainability initiatives, many specific to energy efficiency and renewable energy programs. And kind of how we see ourselves fitting in this particular program is really supporting cities with some market analysis and policy analysis, looking in, what are the opportunities? Who do we need to engage? How do we get potential end users or clients, citizens, residents here engaged and participating in these programs, and where should the city focus its efforts? Because the GreenMoneySearch can bring a lot of the incentives, rebates, can bring all that information to you, but it could be a huge amount of information, and how do you work through all that and figure out the best way to prioritize and focus on the best and greatest options that can reduce emissions within the city, improve efficiency, create economic development opportunities. That's one of the great opportunities we find, is the amount of investment that can happen that can really drive economic development, job growth, as well as emission reduction. So here to support in that and helping with the market analysis and prioritization of efforts across cities. So looking forward to this moving on.
Thanks, Gavin. Appreciate that. So real quick, this is our city engagement steps, and you heard about HARC's critical role, so you can also see them there in those discovery sessions early on. The key takeaway here, and I'm just going to summarize it, is our recommended sort of 36-month contract length. And that's because most cities are going to require pairing. We've learned this in our conversations with them. So when we say pairing, in other words, promoting or pipelining other levels of government, say state or federal, their incentive programs. So this task alone can take quite a bit of time. So we've sort of worked out that 12 months, we believe, now that a lot of these relationships have been warmed up, that a 12-month deadline can be achievable and have that pairing sorted out by year 1. So each year we're reviewing those key metrics, those key performance indicators or KPIs, and we're assessing those targets that are successfully reached through our marketing campaign. And then those small circles in between the large ones, those are just our monthly, quarterly, biannual touch points with key stakeholders to review opportunities for process improvements, and then, of course, define when and how we need to implement those. So lastly, after year 3 and after closeout, we look to revisit increasing our recommended 2 programs. So we recommend for cities to have 2 major incentive programs to focus on. This is a very focused effort that we are current is part of our current dialogue. And so at the end of it, we can review that and look to go from maybe 2 to 4, or maybe we want to pilot some programs. So that said, I know that's a lot of information. I'd like to open it up for Q&A. And so, Max, should I turn it over to you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Natalie. That was really, really a lot of information, but also very, very easy to follow, I think, also with the illustrations, with the screenshots you showed, how you really walked us through the process. I thought it's really impressive, and you position yourself in the beginning with that, filling that gap between the actual offers that are there in terms of incentives and bringing it to the people, which I find always very fascinating. How this doesn't work in many cases, which is really the challenge, and that the government officials may think, well, we do have all these incentives, but for some reason people don't use that. And I think it's a great step to actually offer some stepping stones for people to make it easier to actually link and bridge here. I think I want to ask you a little bit directly as a follow-up, and it's not necessarily just to you, Natalie, but maybe also your colleagues can say something about it. One thing first is, obviously this is not available everywhere right now, so you're starting in pilot cities, right? And then want to roll this out further, is this correct?
Yes, that's correct. And maybe it's best to kind of preface with how this came to be. So in my previous life with Jacobs, I did a lot of program management, and when I came back from overseas, I wanted to focus on the little guys and not do so many mega projects. So I did a lot of small projects, mostly project management for small medical facilities. And when I was doing that, I noticed that a lot of the clients I was serving really weren't taking advantage of opportunities to implement sustainable practices, which could further reduce their overhead. And they were already on a tight budget. These were small businesses. And so when I had that conversation with them, they immediately did the, 2 hands out in front that says, no, 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 green's too expensive. And the only way that I could get that conversation across the table was when I found some incentives in the cities that these medical offices were, and when I pushed those across the desk, I found that conversation flowed a lot easier. So anyways, as I built more of these smaller projects using really only one incentive at a time, that's when I thought, how can I scale this and make it more accessible? Because there was no one-stop shop, if you could, where I could understand in a searchable fashion what's available to me and how could I take advantage of that. So when we began, David and I began working through that dialogue a little bit more. Both of us are with the United States Green Building Council, and through those relationships, we have wonderful access to a multitude of folks at the municipal level in Texas. And so we've been able to work out a lot of this model firsthand and straight out of the horse's mouth. So yes, to answer your question, it is with those cities who want to pilot with us right now.
Excellent. And can people who are on the call maybe right now, can they get in touch with you and suggest cities, or where are you at in the process right now? Are you open for suggestions?
Yes, that's a great question. So we found that a lot of the way we can ease the dialogue with the governments or at other levels of government is actually from the citizen first. And so any citizen who's listening on the line right now, you have a project, or maybe you're thinking about a project, go to our website, go fill out that survey, because what that does, it's going to tell us about your project. It's going to put you in a zip code. And from there, those connections that we have at the city or county or state level with your representatives, those are the dialogues we want to have. And it's a lot better dialogue if I can say, you know what, have a look at this list of X amount of citizens that are looking for commercial incentives, or X amount of citizens that are looking for residential. That dialogue is a lot easier when I have that information. So we always encourage everyone to go to the website, fill out that survey. They're going to help. It's not really about helping us. They're going to help themselves to open that gateway for Green Money Search to happen.
Excellent, thank you. And just a reminder, I mean, I'm asking questions, but all of you, the participants on the call, you're of course muted right now, but you can mention that you have a question in the questions field. You can also send a chat message or raise your hand, and we can then give you the word, and you can ask questions now as well, of course. So one more question, Natalie, as a follow-up, or maybe one of the others maybe wants to answer this. You mentioned this, you were contacted very early on by a financial institution or a financial intermediary. And I want to know how this will be integrated maybe, because that's another big bridge. I mean, you're bridging between the incentive programs in the project developer or the project implementer, but there's of course the question, even with the incentive programs, there's still some money to be put on the table, and that's where maybe banks or mutuals come in, or cooperatives. And how is that maybe linking? Is that planned for the future?
Yes, so this financial solutions group really found us immediately, which our website, again, had only been up 2 months. We were not even promoting it at that time. And so it just, to me, it immediately spelled out that need, that this larger solutions group was looking to provide this solution, and they couldn't find it elsewhere. So when they hit Google, we came up. Where we are in that dialogue now, to be honest, since it is a larger solutions group, they're looking for volume. We're not there yet on that volume of scale. However, they've been fantastic in helping us sort of frame out what that model can look like and how we can begin to scale. And as we scale, at what point should we bring them in the conversation? And so it's been a great learning experience to have that conversation with that financial institution. And I will say that they might have been the first, but they're most certainly not the last. And it was last week that we received, someone had reached out to us from a smaller financial solutions group, a lending group, and they're actually interested in maybe half a dozen to a dozen type of project referral. And so we're going to open that up, that dialogue up into detail in the next month. But I think it's also maybe a great opportunity, if I can, to just open it up to David and Jonathan about PACE, because it's when we discovered using and working with PACE that we really found the citizen interest peaked. So
yeah, as a chair of our Texas Advocacy Committee, I was helping to advocate for PACE at the state legislature some years back. And when it was passed, we all saw that as a big win and a big potential. Yet some of the work, there was a lot of work that still had to go, and there's still work that needs to be done in terms of PACE adoption all across Texas. And Jonathan, if you'd like to just briefly speak about Texas PACE Authority and their role in PACE adoption across Texas, please do.
Yeah, sure. So my organization, Texas PACE Authority, we administer PACE programs on behalf of local governments. So one of the things that we do is we will help a county or a city start a program and then run it for them on the back end at no cost. So currently, Travis County here in Austin was the first county in Texas to have a program. And really it's been active for about a year, a little more than a year now. And in the past few months, we've brought on a number of other programs, including the cities of Dallas and Houston, as well as counties in El Paso, Brazos, Fort Bend, and the Valley region in Texas.
Okay, well, if I may just jump in here, because you mentioned cost at some point in the response, Jonathan. We do have a question here from the audience, and I want to give the floor to Cindy Villarreal. You have a question regarding the fee structure. I just unmuted you, so I hope you can ask your question yourself.
Yes, I just kind of wanted to know what the costs are associated. Is it kind of by the size of the project, the percentage on the savings that you get from the particular organization or rebate, or just how does it work, or does it depend on project?
Well, thank you, Cindy. And I think, I don't know, Natalie, who of you will answer, or you all four of you answer. I think it's a good question because that's, of course, interesting from the user perspective.
No, absolutely. It is a great question. So I can tell you how it operates now. So again, we are in the midst of, we're currently engaged with 3 public agencies. So as soon as we get through those negotiations and kind of kick things started, the fee to a user will be, about $100 for residential, about $250 for commercial. However, I can tell you, with one of the mid-sized cities we've been talking with, households under a certain income, they didn't want them to be charged at all. And so for that, maybe our administrative fee was a little bit higher to that city to cover those costs. There was another public agency who really was keen. They wanted to focus on small businesses, so they didn't want to see certain businesses of a certain size charged. And so again, we could relieve those fees for those small businesses and just have a higher administrative fee to those cities. So that's how it'll work once we finish these engagements and negotiations with the public agencies. Right now, it's a consultant basis. So it is a project by project, and so if you go to the website again, do the survey, we'll have a look at your project, get back in touch with you, and we can take it from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you for answering that so precisely and to the point. And I hope that there'll be actually a lot of follow-up conversations happening with people asking you questions, maybe also spreading the word. So again, this webinar will be recorded, so you can also share it later on with colleagues who couldn't join or contacts who couldn't join, and maybe you'll have more questions in the follow-up to this. So I have to say we have maybe time for 1 or 2 more questions from the audience at this point. And if there is no question right now, I also wanted to ask you something more beyond the energy efficiency and the actual the workings of your website, more to the level of your company, because GreenMoneySearch is a startup, a little bit in between a startup for finance, a startup for energy efficiency, and an online startup. So it's a very interesting mix, and I wanted to know, you mentioned already how the whole idea came about working with the hospital, but I wanted to know, like, were you always considering going independent in that way, or was that something that was still a little bit of a leap idea for you? And I don't know, I mean, I asked that Natalie, but of course, David, that's to you as well, and maybe you can contribute your story of becoming an entrepreneur in a very short 30 seconds here.
Sure, we'll do our best. No, it was definitely the latter of the two. Before David had come on board, I was happy just doing this one-on-one consulting. It really was fulfilling to me, but I quickly realized I was just burning a lot of hours searching, and so when I began to address that, that's when I realized it could work differently. shortly thereafter, David arrived, and we began tossing this around, figuring it out, leveraging our networks, and probing and asking a lot of questions. Like I said, directly from the horse's mouth. So those who either created the policies or were at the government level, and we saw that there was a feasibility to this, and we've been laying out the steps to address things the best we can. But I'm going to be honest here. Being an entrepreneur is wearing a lot of hats, being incredibly flexible, and over communicating, and then learning as you go. We call it failing forward. So with each road hump we come across, that's an opportunity to improve the process or bring in an advisor, leverage our mentors at our either Station Houston or Geekdom, where we sit out of. But it's always an opportunity to make it better and continue to move forward. So I'd love to say that we have this grand plan mapped out from day one, but a lot of it is you learn so much when you engage and discover those problems along the way.
Yeah, as an educator and a lecturer at University of Texas San Antonio, and also as a volunteer advocate for U.S. Green Building Council here in Texas, I have a passion for communicating the need for sustainability and for helping to promote solutions towards that end. And over the summer, a conversation that was started between myself and Natalie turned into these ideas, and I saw the need for that. I saw a way to make a difference, and honestly didn't exactly know what I was in for, but it has been an adventure along the way. I see a vast potential here. I see almost an infinite potential. I see an inevitability. I see a necessity in terms of a sustainable future. As a parent and as an educator, I see younger generations. I see the power that they have and the potential that they have as well. And I have a passion for trying to help unlock that potential. So participating in this startup endeavor, I see it as something that's worthwhile and that I will pour every amount of my effort into, and trying to make it work.
Well, thank you. Thank you, David. Thank you, Natalie, for actually taking this risk, for creating this platform, and thank you also both of you, and of course Gavin and Jonathan, for joining us here today and presenting, explaining, and answering questions about GreenMoneySearch. I think it's a very exciting tool. Well, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't have had you on this webinar for the Postcard Cities of Tomorrow. I think it's a very unique approach in the sense that it can be applied really anywhere. And you mentioned earlier in your presentation, you compared the United States and Europe. And of course, this isn't even something that's limited to the United States, but the gap, bridging the gap, that's also something that can be done in Europe that can benefit citizens and developers in cities and financial institutions in Europe. So it's actually quite a universal challenge you're trying to solve here. And so I think there's a lot of potential for application. It's of course not an easy road. It's a lot of nitty-gritty details to solve. I hope that here, the audience, that you got some insight into what GreenMoneySearch wants to do. I hope that maybe you get some ideas out of this webinar today, that maybe you have some inspiration for your cities where you are, or your work that you're doing in your cities, or have maybe questions as a follow-up to ask the people at GreenMoneySearch, or Gavin, or Jonathan. And also, of course, feel free to contact me or my colleagues here at the POCACITO project. We hope to continue this very soon, and I can announce already today that the next webinar will be next week on December 6th. I'll email you an invitation later today. We have it confirmed, so it will be held by Jonathan Leonardson. He's an engineer at Ramboll Engineering, or he's an economist at Ramboll Engineering, and he works on the socioeconomic costs and impacts of climate change adaptation and mitigation projects. And he's worked in American cities, and he's going to present his approach to the cost and benefit estimation of these climate change related measures. So tune in next week again. It will be on the 6th. This will be at the same time as today's webinar. I'll send you the invitation, of course. You can already block it in your calendars. And in the meantime, of course, I wish you all a great rest of this week and weekend. And feel free to also get in touch with us anytime with recommendations about maybe webinars or an online discussion. You can reach us via email, you can reach us on the LinkedIn group, and you can, of course, also contact us in person here in the Washington office. If you ever happen to be in DC, please say hello. We don't only exist online. Thank you very much, and I want to close this session and give my regards to everybody in Texas, of course, to the team at GreenMoneySearch for being here today, and good luck with the business and also with improving energy efficiency in cities across the United States. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Max. Thank you, everyone.